Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Your wife is alive, the poor little girl whispers to the tearful millionaire in front of the grave. The sky was overcast that morning, and the rain fell gently on the freshly dug graves in the cemetery of Westwood Hills, California. A light breeze made the cypress trees lined up along the main aisle shiver, as if they too were mourning the loss of a loved one. The scent of the wet earth mingled with that of the white lilies, carefully arranged around the coffin, still half visible in the dark earth. The priest had just spoken the last words of the ritual, but his echoes seemed to be lost in the void, absorbed by the solemn silence that enveloped the scene like a veil of mourning. Nicholas Whitmore, a real estate tycoon accustomed to ruling over steel towers and boardrooms, stood there, motionless, frozen like a statue. His tailored black suit was soaked, stuck to his skin. His eyes, usually so bright, seemed dull, drowned in a deep sorrow that no amount of money could repair. His features were drawn, as if every muscle had frozen at the exact moment his heart broke. He barely blinked, staring at the freshly engraved tombstone. Evelyn Grace Whitmore, 1984 to 2025. Light of my soul, eternal rest. Around him, the crowd had disappeared. The photographer's flashes had gone off, the hypocritical murmurs of his business colleagues had dissipated, and the comforting arms, the ones that had held him without really understanding, had drifted away. Nothing remained. Nothing but rain, marble, and an emptiness so vast it seemed to swallow even the sound of his breath. And yet, in this silence broken only by the lapping of the rain, someone was approaching. At first, he thought it was an illusion. But no. A small figure was moving slowly along the gravel path, its hesitant steps sinking into the mud. It was holding a stuffed animal too old to have any stuffing left. Its coat, if you could call it that, was actually a grown-up sweater with its sleeves rolled up. The dress it wore hung at its thin knees like a crumpled tablecloth. Its brown hair was matted and pulled back in a ponytail with a blue elastic band that was almost loose. But what struck Nicholas was not her apparent misery. Nor was it the fact that a child was standing alone in a deserted cemetery. No. It was her gaze. Direct. Frank. Fearless. A gaze that seemed to see beyond death, beyond grief. A gaze that carried something greater than his age. She stopped a few meters away from him. The rain was still falling, streaming down her dirty face, without her blinking. "Monsieur Whitmore," she said in a soft but clear voice. He jumped slightly. Her voice, frail but sure, pierced the bubble of solitude he had enclosed himself in. He turned slowly, stunned to see this child here, amidst the desolation. "I'm sorry, little one," he whispered hoarsely. "This is no place for a child." She didn't answer right away. She looked at him with the gravity of a much older person. Then, without a word, she approached again. When she got close, she gently placed her stuffed animal on the floor, as if preparing something important. Then she looked up at him, her face wet but determined. "Your wife is not dead. She is alive." Nicholas frowned, his eyes slowly widening. A chill crept up the back of his neck, cold and violent, like a wave of ice breaking the surface of a dormant lake. He sat up slowly, his muscles tense, his mind flickering between shock, disbelief, and deep fear, that uncontrollable fear you feel when something fundamental is called into question. Was it a hallucination? A cruel game? A bad joke played by a sick mind? Or simply the confused delirium of a lost child? He opened his mouth to tell her to leave, to stop making up these stories. But before a single word could leave his lips, the little girl spoke before him in a calm, almost solemn tone. "She saved me. 2 weeks ago." Nicholas froze. She lived in an old warehouse near the Northridge train station. She was injured. She had trouble walking. She spoke little, but she was afraid. She said she shouldn't be found. That a man wanted her dead. Each word fell like a stone into the silence. The rain continued to fall, but Nicholas no longer felt it. He saw nothing around him but this child, with her penetrating gaze, and her words that pierced the armor of his grief. She gave me her necklace, Hope continued. She told me, keep it. Don't show it to anyone. Unless you see the man with the sad eyes. You'll recognize him. He won't smile, even if he's surrounded by flowers. And there, with a slow and measured gesture, the little girl slipped her hand into the pocket of her oversized sweater. She took out a small silver chain, tied to a heart-shaped locket, tarnished by time and bad weather. Nicholas felt his breath catch in his throat. The chain slid into the child's outstretched palm. He stared at it, unable to move, unable to speak. Slowly, he knelt in the mud, his knees sinking without his realizing it. His hands trembled as he grasped the object, as if it were a piece of soul returned to him after centuries. The locket was dented on the side, but intact. He opened it. Inside, a tiny black and white photo. The two of them. Evelyn and him. Smiling, young, in love. On the day of their 10th wedding anniversary. He remembered that moment with painful clarity, the dinner by Lake Tahoe, the candles, Evelyn's laughter, the moment he slipped that chain around his neck and said, "If we ever get lost, this heart will bring me back to you." Her lips trembled. "It's impossible," he murmurs. "Evelyn died in a car accident. I saw the car, there was almost nothing left. I identified the body. It was her. It was her." His voice trailed off. Doubt had crept into his words like poison. But the girl wasn't finished. His voice, soft but assured, cut short his train of thought. "It wasn't her. She told me. It was another woman in the car." That night, insomnia enveloped Nicholas like an icy blanket. He lay awake, sitting in the large leather chair in his study, his hands balled into fists on his knees. Every time he closed his eyes, Evelyn's face came back to him, vivid and clear, the one the little girl had described. He wondered if he was sinking into madness. But deep inside him, a spark burned, hope. A faint hope that kept him from giving up. At dawn, he called Jack Ramsey, his trusted private investigator. A former inspector with a troubled past, Jack had a piercing gaze that could probe souls, a flair that was second to none, and a reputation as a tenacious man who never gave up. Nicholas explained the situation to him, his tone firm, leaving no room for doubt. "Jack, I want you to go to North Ridge, search every warehouse, every street, every squat. Find that little girl, Hope. And most importantly, find my wife. Whatever it takes." Jack nodded, immediately stepping out, diving into the slowly fading night. The following days were a torture of waiting. Nicholas paced his vast house, the phone always within reach, his heart on the verge of bursting. Then, 2 days later, his phone vibrated suddenly. He picked it up, gasping. "Boss, this is crazy." Jack spoke with an urgency he had never known. A nurse at a makeshift clinic in North Ridge confirmed that a woman matching Evelyn's description came through there 2 weeks ago. Injured, with amnesia. She was treated hastily, almost hidden. "And the little girl?" Nicholas asked breathlessly. "Hope is living in a children's home. She was found, questioned. She's not lying. It all adds up. I swear, boss, it's real." Heart pounding, Nicholas hit the road without delay. He drove for hours to this dilapidated warehouse, hidden in an abandoned industrial area, where cracked concrete and graffiti told stories of despair. The door, a rusty old sheet of metal, creaked as he pushed it open. The air was heavy, thick with humidity and a pungent, musty smell. He advanced cautiously, his heart sinking. In the shadows, wrapped in dirty blankets, he saw a frail figure. Evelyn. She stood there, emaciated, drawn, marked by fear and fatigue. Her eyes, despite everything, shone with a familiar light, a silent strength. Their eyes met, and suddenly the world faded away around them. "Nick," she whispered, her voice broken but soft. He knelt before her, tears blurring his vision. "I looked for you, searched so hard. Without thinking, he took her in his arms, crying like a child, letting out all the accumulated pain and fear. They remained like that, kneeling on the cold, hard floor of the warehouse, united by an unexpected miracle. In the weeks following Nicholas and Evelyn's miraculous reunion, the pieces of truth began to fall, one by one, like the last leaves of a dead tree whose rotten roots are finally revealed. Evelyn, still fragile, spoke softly again, and as his memories returned, a dark canvas was revealed. What she had discovered, just weeks before his alleged death, was beyond anything she could have imagined. Behind the sleek walls of the Whitmore and Cole towers, behind the firm handshakes and smiles of her colleagues, lay a vast network of corruption, money laundering, embezzlement, and fraudulent contracts, a system that had been illegally enriching Nicholas's associates for years. She had stumbled upon the evidence by chance, while reviewing the financial documents of a real estate project abroad. She hesitated, doubted, then decided to talk to Nicholas about it. But before she could do so, they had known it. And they had reacted faster than she would have thought. On the day of the accident, Evelyn had been trapped. A woman resembling her had been placed in her vehicle, made up, dressed like her, and sent straight to her death. Evelyn, on the other hand, had been assaulted, injured, and abandoned on the outskirts of town, left for dead. But she had survived. With an almost animalistic survival instinct, she fled into the streets, fleeing her pursuers, hiding in underground passages, abandoned construction sites, deserted buildings. She no longer had a name, no papers, no voice. The whole world believed her dead. Until she crosses hope. This little wandering girl, also invisible to the world, lived in the shadows of big cities. It was she who had found her one evening, lying behind a container, trembling and unconscious. Hope hadn't run away. She had covered her with an old coat stolen from a dumpster. And for days, she had shared her meager meals with her, helped her walk, protected from the street and the cold. Evelyn, grateful, had done everything she could to leave her a message, this necklace, and the enigmatic words intended for Nicholas. When the truth came to light, a media earthquake shook California high society. Investigations were launched. Searches were conducted at the Whitmore and Cole offices. 2 partners were arrested, and a third attempted to flee the country. Nicholas, distraught, cooperated fully with the authorities, determined to clear his name and turn the page once and for all. But in the midst of this turmoil, a ray of light persisted, hope. Nicholas and Evelyn had taken her into their home from the very beginning. But it soon became more than just an act of gratitude. This child, lively, lucid, and filled with compassion despite her painful past, had forged a new bond between them, strong and indestructible. She had awakened in Nicholas a love he hadn't even suspected he was capable of, that of a father. A few months later, they started the adoption process. The day of the hearing, Evelyn wore a simple white dress with her hair pulled back. Hope, on the other hand, wore a sky blue dress, given to her by Nicholas, with a small heart-shaped brooch he had made for her, identical to the locket she had once protected. In front of the journalists gathered outside the courthouse, Evelyn spoke, her voice clear and her eyes shining. This child not only saved me. She also saved my husband, restoring his faith, and gave me back life. She is not a poor child. She is an angel who has been ignored for too long. The crowd was moved. Cameras filmed the scene where Hope timidly slipped her hand into Evelyn's, then Nicholas's, forming this new family born from chaos and miracle. Nicholas, for his part, announced his final retirement from business shortly after. He sold his stake in the company, freeing himself from any connection with a world in which he no longer recognized himself. The foundation, the Hope Whitmore Foundation, an organization entirely dedicated to homeless children, orphans, and invisible young people living on the margins of society. He devoted his fortune, his time, his energy to it. He was seen in the field, on the streets, visiting homes, shaking hands with those who were usually avoided. And in every interview, in every conference, he repeated, "A little girl, without a name or a home, gave me back love, truth, and my wife. I no longer need wealth. Only to honor this miracle." Years later, Hope Whitmore, now an elegant, radiant, and confident young woman, stood on the stage of a large amphitheater in Geneva at a global conference on child poverty. Before her were heads of state, philanthropists, NGO leaders, and children from around the world. Cameras broadcast the event live. Dressed in a sober suit and the colors of the foundation she now led, Hope spoke with a calm but firm voice, tinged with sincere emotion. "When I was little," she said, "I was hungry. Cold. No one looked at me. People walked past me as if I didn't exist. I was told I was worthless. That my life would never change." She paused, scanning the audience. A respectful silence fell. "But one day, I saw a man in tears, broken, overwhelmed by grief. He didn't see me, not really. He thought he'd lost everything. And yet, that day, I dared to speak to him. Just a few words. And that day, without knowing it, I changed my destiny, and his." Murmurs of emotion rippled through the room. Some delegates' eyes watered. The cameras then focused on a couple sitting in the front row. Nicholas and Evelyn Whitmore. He, once a powerful business magnate, now a humble patron with a peaceful gaze. She, strong and gentle, whose light seemed to radiate every corner of the room. They held hands, their eyes fixed on their beloved daughter. Tears flowed freely down their faces. Hope continued. "He didn't just listen to me. He believed me. He welcomed me. He protected me. And thanks to him, I was able to grow, learn, and dream. Today, I'm here not because I was saved, but because I was recognized. Because I was given a voice." She leaned slightly towards the microphone. "To all the children who are ignored, I say this: you are not invisible. You are hidden treasures. And to all the adults here, listen to them. Look at them. One look can change everything." Thunderous applause erupted. People rose to their feet. Hope Whitmore's name became a global symbol of hope and resilience that day. Nicholas hugged Evelyn and whispered, "She is our greatest wealth." And Evelyn answered, moved, "Our living miracle."